So I've had a really good game here in the Des Moines for you, and I wanted to talk a little bit about this ship in particular, since it's very old, and I've been kind of hard on some of the older ships in this game. As I'm sure a lot of you saw, I'm not recommending German battleships at all. Certainly Italian battleships is a little more newer, but again, not as recommended due to the lack of range and ability to impact the game at distance. And that's really a major concern and issue with World of Warships recently is this ability to impact and win games early on in these longer range engagements. Des Moines certainly does not have the range. It doesn't have that long range impact like something like a Stalingrad would. As you can see, we're getting crossfired here a little bit harshly, but Des Moines' maneuverability plus maybe a little bit of luck is helping us to survive here just a little bit. Des Moines, of course, has its battle impact at close range, right? This ship has a 10-kilometer radar that lasts an incredibly long time, and really fast-firing 203mm guns that have some atrocious arcs. Look at how long this takes to reach this Kansas out to near our max range. I'm also running range mod since its base range is actually worse than the Worcester is. Another one of the tier 10 American cruisers. And that one has 152mm guns. So a little interesting, but I'm here to say Des Moines is certainly worth getting still. Even in a game like this where my start is not great. There's a lot of islands in the game that Des Moines can play on. Assuming there's no carrier, I did get very lucky in this matchmaker. No CV, no submarine, so I am able to play on this island a little bit better and work on some of these destroyers. That's the strength, of course, in the Des Moines. Getting into these close islands and trying to kill off destroyers help your destroyers win engagements. Unfortunately, due to my angling earlier, thanks to the Stalingrad, it put me in a very awkward position, and I reverse out greedily to shoot this gearing and get hard punished for it. Fortunately, it's only one of the Pan-European destroyers, the tier 8, I believe, so the torps don't actually kill me here. But ideally, I'd want to be bow towards the one line, not bow in towards B. That's kind of where I would rather be playing, and that's why my angle was so bad. But even with this rough of a start, this game's going to be pretty good. And it's one of the reasons I think Des Moines is still so good these days. It's a pretty flexible, impactful ship that can move around the map and win the crucial engagements. Against destroyers, against some of the radar cruisers, light cruisers, that kind of thing, the armor piercing really is no joke. If you haven't heard, the Des Moines specifically has super heavy AP. What does that mean? Well, it has improved pen angles specifically. So instead of getting bounces on a ship at around 30 degrees angle, these armor-piercing shells can actually pen through into citadels at a 20 or even sometimes less than a 20-degree angle. So in one-on-one engagements, a Des Moines versus a Des Moines, you have to go directly bow in, otherwise you're risking taking citadels. I've seen even at a 15 or so degree angle, very, very sharp angle, Des Moines still getting a citadel into another Des Moines, at least at close range. Get a little lucky here on the Kitakazi, who actually detonates, but I had to move off of this island. I was not in a position to take an engagement against a Des Moines. You notice I was stern towards that corner where the enemy Des Moines was bow in, and that's not an engagement I want to take since the stern of the Des Moines is incredibly flat and very easy to full pen with armor piercing, even citadel. So it's time to move, and I was concerned about a Kitakazi YOLO. So this really hasn't started off too well for us, my team, or myself here. We've kind of lost the 1, 2, 3 lines, even though we had a lot more or similar number of ships, and seemingly should have had the advantage, given that the enemy destroyers, we at least got one of them, and I was in a much more aggressive, pushed up position, successfully getting my radar off against those destroyers compared to where the enemy Des Moines was. So we've lost the flank, but Des Moines is still a reasonably good kiting ship. The turret angles are okay looking backwards, and of course this armor piercing is great against cruisers, or really anyone who's pushing into you. even if they give you the slightest angle. The other reason I'm just spamming AP instead of HE, Eden has improved heal, so it's going to heal back a lot of that HE damage, and I want to make sure this guy is caught bow in. You'll notice some crossfires starting to come in from my teammates on the 8-9 lines, and that is where this Des Moines shines. In these crossfires, the Eden is forced, I guess, to angle to my teammates, so now we get those extremely punishing Citadel salvos. Assuming the lead is good and the dispersion cooperates, the AP is amazing. And that's, I think, one of the best parts about this cruiser. It feels amazing getting these broadside shots on other cruisers. It's a very consistent, high damage experience, and I really enjoy it for that. Even if a cruiser is angling slightly, can definitely get those full pens in. At longer ranges, while the pen isn't terribly great, it's really the improved pen angles that help it out at these longer ranges. And assuming I'm aiming correctly for the upper belt and the superstructure, should be doing some pretty solid damage to this Kremlin. We'll see a little later on what some closer range engagements look like with this armor piercing. It's pretty nasty stuff. But that's one of the reasons I really think Des Moines is worth getting still. It's the fastest reload you can possibly get with 203mm guns. Most of these other 203 ships and higher have around that 8 to 10 second reload, not the 5.5 second base that the Des Moines has. And it's just a very unique experience. Salem as well is a lot of fun, and these ships really don't play like a lot of others, since it can play so aggressive in these closer range engagements, making use of that armor piercing. A lot of the tier 10 cruisers are going to lose close range one-on-one engagements to a Des Moines, just thanks to this improved fire rate and the better pen angles. It's a really, really fun ship, assuming you can play around islands. And you'll notice I do skip forward a lot in this video, and that's because I'm just traveling between islands. It's an okay ship in open water, but I certainly would prefer to be running something else if I was looking for a long-range open water cruiser. But a lot of these maps, this map included, have a lot of island cover that can be used to isolate fights, and that's the massive strength of this ship. So even though I have used all my heals, I've taken a ton of damage throughout this game, I still have a ton of impact even into the later stages of this game. This radar from behind islands is incredibly useful for gaining information, flushing ships out of their smoke, and of course learning where the enemy team is positioned and where they might be going. I spot the enemy destroyer, the last one remaining there, so we know exactly where he is. We know where the torps are definitely coming from as they just passed in front of us. This information is very valuable in these later stages of this game, and hopefully can help some of my higher health ships in this game to push up and be a little more aggressive in this one. It's coming down to the wire, and we really need some of our higher HP ships to make a play. I do catch the enemy Des Moines broadside, and everything that I've told you would suggest I'm going to do some huge damage here. But of course, one of the downsides of the Des Moines is this incredibly poor dispersion. So unfortunately, the Des Moines gets away. But I do have to make a play. It's coming down to the wire. The enemy team has all of the caps, and of course, a massive points lead. But the Monarch pushes a little too aggressively, so I can come out and catch his broadside. And just look at the damage rack up. Of course, we do get Confederate there, so a Halsey buff means that we have around a 3-second reload right now, which is absolutely disgusting. And since the Monarch had armor piercing, well, our 27mm bow is enough to bounce that. I don't really talk too much about Des Moines armor, because these days, it's still a cruiser, and most battleships at the tier are definitely capable of overmatching you. So it's not worth relying on against tier 10 battleships, but certainly against lower tier ones, you can do some great work. And this close range brawl nearly killed the Monarch. Unfortunately, our Vladivostok does go down. He actually went AFK, either rage quit, or perhaps there were some server issues and he just got kicked out of his game. So that was unfortunate. We definitely could have used a reasonably full HP battleship into the later stages of this game. I, of course, have to run from this Des Moines and try and get away, hoping to maybe clutch this game out later on if this Des Moines goes down, and maybe we can turn around and catch the enemy destroyer and the Neptune. But unfortunately, of course, they make the smart plays, they run away, and accept their victory. So well played to them. A really, really close game here. I really wanted to win this one, but it really reminded me how good the Des Moines really is still. So that's why I would still definitely recommend getting the Des Moines, even in 2022. The ship is getting to be 7 years old now, certainly been in the game a very long time, and still relevant and worth getting, and I think it's an actually very fun, unique experience. Not a lot of the tier 10 cruisers really play like it. This is the build that I'm currently running on it. As you can see, taking top grade gunner for some of those closer range engagements. The way I like to play Des Moines, it can make use of top grade gunner. I'm not fully relying on it, I'm not going all in on it, but it is nice to get that small little reload buff. Otherwise, I'm trying to go for survivability, really. That is the goal here, trying to live, trying to get to those closer islands to make use of our radar. Of course, with Halsey or one of the improved American commanders, taking Gunfeeder is a must on this ship. The HE is so good, but the AP is probably better, so being able to swap between them is very, very useful. In around 1 second is the swap time with these improved commanders. Of course, I am also running range mod. I think it's just necessary these days, given how passive this game is, and I definitely do want to use that extra range. It is a little bit tough to get used to these arcs, since they do travel so slowly, but you reload so quickly that the amount of shells you're firing, you'll get used to the aim in no time. I, of course, also want to run propulsion mod. It's so crucial for those island positions to maneuver quickly and efficiently, trying to get in and out of enemy fire, trying to poke out to get a radar off and some shots off, and then reverse back behind an island quickly. Even with Aiming Systems Mod 1, the dispersion leaves a little bit to be desired. So that is the one downside as far as the close range DPM, is that dispersion. But it's still a really strong ship, and definitely a great ship in 2022. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think this is still worth getting in 2022? Since I certainly do. I'd love to hear your opinions on that. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.